The truth is inside of us, and it's wonderful when we have the courage to tell it.
Welcome to this third recording regarding money. Here I will talk about some topics that we all have to experience because not all of us grew up with great counsel. Some of us had to risk learning things from people that we knew were not providing the best advice, but it was all we had available. Well, if you take the time to allow yourself to listen to this with no distractions, I believe the counsel you will receive from this will be the guidance you need today and what you wish for in your past. Men with wisdom for the youth are not available in this generation because they are consumed by the same doctrine. Foolishness. Women have lost their own sense of being and have nothing of true substance to offer. This also goes for both men and women who claim to be God-fearing. Most people want to be liked and a part of a group. This is natural. That's not the problem. The problem is that the collection of people who seek group validation do not evolve, but only become a follower amongst the followers. It makes sense why people will sacrifice themselves just to receive a vague compliment. Let me ask you two questions. 1. Do you value your time equally to how you value your money? And 2. When are you going to stop giving energy to people and things that are not conducive to you? Did you know that 90% of our problems are the result of inviting problems from others? Sharon Martin, a licensed counselor and psychotherapist in North Carolina, wrote this in her article. Quote, "Instead of doing things for other people, we need to allow them to live their own lives, make their own decisions and mistakes, and deal with the consequences of their choices. Not only does this frees us up to focus on what we can control, it respects other people's autonomy." End quote. I guess that's why so many people are miserable in this generation, aside from financial issues, is because they introduce drama into their lives. The psychological and emotional attachment keeps people in prisons, and it appears once they are in them, they usually do not learn to get out. This is why you see odd couples together, or that uncomfortable relationship that likes to argue to only have aggressive sex later. We all have 24 hours if the Lord blesses us to wake up, and the question is, how do you spend it? Let me put it another way. If today was your last day to live, how much time would you give to the important things and the unimportant? My reasonable and educated guess is that you would do fun things, go on adventures, have meaningful conversations, and donate to the poor. All of which would be therapeutic and revitalizing, wouldn't you agree? The investment of your time is a rare concept that we think about. We don't even consider it. We think it just happens. But all the while, time is not just a way for us to know if it's time to wake up or go to sleep, but it's one which is a gift from the Almighty Himself. Take my example of thinking about time as a countdown for your last 24 hours. You wouldn't even go near drama, let alone violence. You heard the slogan, "Time is money"? Well, it's a good metaphor for what I'm talking about, and it has good truth to it. You can't make money if your time is used up. How about being more particular with who, what, when, and where you spend your time and energy, because you can't replenish it or borrow it? A mother gave birth to 2 boys. They were healthy and strong alike, being that they shared the same father and mother. Somehow they were both completely different in appearance. It's interesting how genetics work. During the pregnancy period, when the woman noticed she would be having twins, she began to realize the commotion from her belly. During labor, the midwife noticed that one of the babies were holding the ankle of the other, as if there were a miniature war between the two inside the womb for those 9 months. The father named the sons of his Esau and Jacob. Esau was declared the firstborn because he came out first while hanging onto his brother's ankle. Then followed Jacob. Though they were twins, they were different. Esau had more hair on his small body than an average newborn, and his skin was lighter with a red hue, similar to a Caucasian person who enjoys a natural tan from time to time. Jacob had a darker shade of skin, which would be closer to the complexion of a person who's Indian or Egyptian descent. Money cannot be made without the need for it. If you start a business and create a brand of quality, people will begin to applaud your services by how much money they spend with your company. That's your scoreboard, essentially. It's a way to track your growth, provide increased salaries for employees, and offer positions within your company to potential hires due to the revenue expansion. Again, providing a benefit to another. As the two grew into their maturity, their characteristics were more developed. Esau was a mighty hunter and skilled in weaponry, Jacob was not interested in hunting, but carpentry, construction, and specialized in the arts of culinary. As young adults, the parents' behaviors became displacing. The father loved Esau and the mother loved Jacob. You can imagine the microaggression in this household. Since Esau was a skillful hunter, he would often be gathering food for the family. One evening, coming back when he was so hungry and thirsty from his ventures, he noticed the amazing smell from the pot of stew his brother was cooking. He asked him for a bowl of it. Jacob said, "Give me your birthright, and I will give you a bowl." This was a crucial request because everything that the father owned, land, cattle, resources, and status, would go to the son. The hunger was great within Esau, so he agreed to sell his birthright to his younger brother, as he said, "Look, if I don't eat from all of my hunting, I'm going to die. What good is my birthright if I'm dead?" Then it was finished. Therefore, Esau forsook his own birthright that day. In old age, the father's eyes were becoming too heavy to keep open, and he couldn't see his sons anymore. He could only feel the difference between the two by their skin. If the skin was hairy, then that was Esau. If it was smooth, then it was Jacob. The father was consistent in his tradition and wanted to give his firstborn the inheritance before he died in his old age. It was customary to give the firstborn the birthrights of the father to prolong his name and lineage. So the father called for the eldest and said to him, "Son, I don't know how much longer I will be alive because I'm approaching death. But what I need you to do is go and prepare your finest meal so that I can eat with you and bless you in order for you to receive your birthright." He went out to the field and began to prepare the meal. The mother overheard this from a distance and went to Jacob to tell him to pretend to be his brother. But he was concerned about being detected because he was not as hairy as his brother. The mother strategized a plan so that Jacob could receive all the inheritance. So she gave him the meal and bread she had made that the father was waiting for from Esau. Then she placed goat skin on his hands and neck alongside Esau's clothing, since they had the same body frame. Jacob approached his father in his dying age, and the father was surprised how quickly he prepared the meal. They ate together, and the father transferred the inheritance to him after being tricked. Now, Jacob didn't feel comfortable doing this, but the mother insisted. She insisted so much that she said, "If any trial or tribulation comes about, then let it be on me. Let the curse be on me." It was a premeditated maneuver, to say the least. As you can tell, this is not a good story, and it ended in dysfunction. Esau was angry that he didn't receive the blessings from his father, but yet he sold it to his brother earlier. Well, that's because he didn't realize the inheritance he could have received. Jacob acquired it all, but had to flee to another land just to eliminate potential catastrophe that awaited him from his brother's contempt. He wanted to kill him. In essence, what I'm conveying is that most often we have been gifted with great abilities that would help us attain good fortune. Whether it be you are a great mechanic and earn good wages from your excellent services, or being a physician with quality morals, your gift is your inheritance. You can be given anything, but if you didn't earn it on your own, there's an inclination of not having respect or honor for it. Say your father gives you an old baseball glove that he got from his father and his father's father gave it to him. That's the trend, by the way. But when it reaches the hands of the one who doesn't value it, he'll throw it away or put it into compartment storage just to forget about it. Then the trend stops. It goes unnoticed how wealthy a person is internally, and they rarely dig into their own soil to reap the fruit that can be abundant. Here's a quote to think about. "When you glance at wealth, it disappears, for it makes wings for itself and flies like an eagle to the sky." That's a good metaphor, and that's how it is. People mistreat money, squander it unintelligently, or chase it so much that it tends to disappear quickly like an eagle flying away into the distance. If there would be a truer definition of how to go broke, then that would be it. You are still broke if you earn $1 million and then spend $1 million. How about that? A person can be on his last dollars while appearing rich, as well as appearing poor yet having much in his bank account. People will practically pay any price for something they desperately want or for the sake of just being greedy. They'll degrade themselves for it, lie and steal for it, or become a slave for it. I read this from a passage. "Watch out. Guard yourselves against every form of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." Those are the words of the Alpha and Omega. We have a consumption epidemic. No one thinks. Neurologist Barry Gordon has disproved the myth that humans use up to 10% of their brain capacity. We actually can use more. I think that answers a lot of questions as to why so many people are lazy, financially dissolute, and unattractive, all of which are within the control of each and every one of us. I suggest if a person does not have seriousness in these categories, you ought to consider gravely not to enter their aura. This consumption thing is an act of seeking and getting. What kills people slowly is the angst of impulsion. This generation cannot exercise self-control. Anything that seems pleasing to the eyes or has a perceived notion of quick gratification distorts the mind of an individual. This is why there is a label for consumers who indulge in purchasing merchandise. They are called impulsive buyers. Those who are affiliated in this group are harmful to themselves and do not have the ability to think long-term. It's all short-term rationality. This impulsive behavior can be in other forms than just being a reckless buyer. The impulsion to spread gossip, the impulsion to strike an altercation when he can simply just walk away. A man's insight gives him patience, and his virtue is to overlook an offense, stated by a Hebrew philosopher. Then you have those who have the impulsion to drink, have sex, or inhale and exhale tobacco or cannabis. Anything that is consistently done with no train of thought, or if it was given thought, the intent was to start drama with no particular reason or motive. It's an impulsion. Did you know some people have conditioned themselves to enjoy chaos? It's interesting, isn't it? This explains why some people just cannot outrun problems in their lives. It seems that the more that they try to win that race, the more frequently they are left losing, gasping for air. That's the whole thing about it. They are gasping for air and don't even realize it. It's a strangling effect that people have created for themselves, and most will never be free because of the pride in their hearts. If you do not stop and consider your problems, then eventually your problems will have you figured. Psychologists from the University of Texas have developed a defining term in personality traits called the NFD, need for drama. After several studies, this is what they said. Quote, people with drama-prone personalities generally live chaotic lives and inflict contrived crises on family, friends, and co-workers. End quote. They also stated this, quote, high-drama individuals tend to have long histories of failed relationships, search out conflict in the workplace and on social media, and not only engage in gossip about others, they complain about being the subject of gossip themselves. End quote. Females have less control over their emotional stability to handle conflict or explain circumstances clearly without involving false accusations in an effort to project a sense of loyalty or trustworthiness to another female associate or relative. This is why women will destroy themselves if they're left alone, because they are led by what they feel or can connect with, even if they have to create a false narrative to persuade you enough to believe them. Wolves in sheep's clothing. There was a man from a land called Uz, and he was a wealthy man who had many businesses and employees. He also was part of a large family of 12 because he and his wife had 10 children. He said something profound, which was this, quote, the dishonorable may have too much silver to count and more clothes than anyone needs, but some good person will wear the clothes and someone honest will get the silver, end quote. The key word from what he said is dishonorable. Those who have a conservation of spending their money when necessary are typically mature and wise with their money habits. These individuals have budgets, and they follow closely their expenses and liabilities rather than making improper investments. Speaking of investments, conservative money managers make sure that they have a healthy checkup on their financial status. It's as important as a routine checkup with your family practitioner. Maintaining good physical health is to have a good maintenance schedule on the health of your finances too. Here's something that Rod Griffin, the Senior Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy at Experian, which is one of the top credit reporting companies in the United States, said, that accumulating assets without a goal in mind, the I want to buy stuff approach, isn't a sign of financial progress or productivity. If you're just buying stuff, Griffin said, you'll never be good with money. That's accurately put, and it's fair to say that this is also in direct correlation to how individuals manage themselves. They end up never being good in life. On an optimistic note, I like what Eric Roberge, a certified financial planner and the founder of Beyond Your Hammock, added. He said, When you start to see your balance growing, whether it's in a savings account or an investment account or both, you get excited. And the more excited you get, the more you want to do it. And then it becomes kind of fun to save money. This is a good practical statement. Whoever thought that you could learn to have fun saving greenbacks? Procured investments will yield great interest, but if you keep investing your time and energy to people or things that do not return to you as perceivable assets, then just like contentious women, you will arrive in the same place you started. Nowhere. The lack of money or the sufficiency of money depends on you. Remember, if you don't utilize your brain to think of ideas that could reward you handsomely in the income department, then you essentially are lazy and deserve nothing. If you are not planting any seeds, then by default, in the law of reaping and sowing, your growth will be null and void. But for those who have been blessed to attain an occupation so that they may support themselves or family, have achieved their share of the pie, so to speak. Nothing wrong with a man desiring a specific amount of income. It's a healthy goal to have, and no one has ever been looked down upon just because of wanting to feed their family. Money has become like a sort of a measurement of status and stability. The more money you have, the more you are seen to be stable, self-sufficient, and a powerful person. The less money a person has, the less perceived value is assumed. This is the effect of our psychology and biological instincts. Just think about it for a moment. There are men and women who are panhandling on busy streets for financial support or for food. These people are labeled as poor based on our socio-economic structure. We don't know if they are pretending or if this is a genuine pursuit, but regardless of the details, the appearance subjects them to poverty assumptions. You can say the same thing about a man or a woman dressed for a business meeting. We would assume, based on situational awareness, that these people are not poor, but they are either in the first class or middle class assortment. This is why first impressions are important, no matter what level of income you have. Did you know that only 10% of the world is living in poverty? 80% of people have average salaries of approximately $45,000 a year. The other 9% makes over $100,000 a year. And the 1% are your billionaires and millionaires. If most people are not living in poverty, then the question of why people are asking for handouts goes back to what I mentioned earlier in this program. That word was lazy. It seems that not only the government has aided in this nonchalant behavior due to giving families financial bonuses for having children or a spouse, but it condoned the unambitious lifestyles of the unproductive. Homelessness has and will always be prevalent in our world, but with schemes and deceptive hearts, there are innovative criminals who take advantage of such scenarios. They say, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. I find that quite dangerous advice, because in order to get an idea of the potential data or information that are on those pages, that book's cover will allow you to decide swiftly if you dare to place your hand on that book at all. This is why you just don't run into a house in flames at first sight. The smart thing to do is call 911 so that the trained professionals could be dispatched to the scene for any extractions. The analogy of the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree is usually in the context of describing good or bad behavior of a particular person. This is true beyond a shadow of a doubt, that a person's apple doesn't fall too far from his tree. This is a form of constructive criticism, nonetheless, but it's indirect. In this generation, no one wants to be told that they are wrong and could do better. They take it as a personal attack, as if you're threatening to take their life. But this isn't no different than what the carpenter has told us and how to see through people. We may not have X-ray vision, but we have the closest thing to it, and that is in these words. Quote, no good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. For each tree is known by its fruit. Indeed, figs are not gathered from thorn bushes, nor grapes from brambles. The good man brings good things out of the good treasures of his heart, and the evil man brings evil things out of the evil treasures of his heart. For out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. End quote. So, in truth, we can judge a person and know them by the cover of their book, which is a sample of their fruit. The number one thing that rich and the poor have in common is this: the Lord made them both. Naked have we come into the world, and naked we will leave the world. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. The development of money has been a process. We had shekels, then coins made of silver and gold, to what we have now, valued printed paper. This is our primary form of currency, and we use it daily for all transactions, unless you're using your debit card or credit cards with the blessing of living in the 21st century. How you earn money is as important as how you save it or spend it. When a criminal is caught, they are detained. Those who are apprentices also get detained because there's a guilty association. After thorough investigation, the alleged victims will either be released or placed in jail until a hearing is scheduled. Whoever is convicted of the crime with evidential proof will be incarcerated legally. This is the same thing with money. If you make money honestly, you have no worry of being audited or indicted. But if you're making that money by a false hand, then surely you and those affiliated with you will be under the radar. Just like domestic problems, poor investments are destructive. I think if we stop trying to be superheroes and set a priority on our own mental health, things will be better. Conversations will be more edifying, there will be less drama in one's life, and it would practically eliminate stress. The main detriment of people is that they have a disconnected understanding of risk and reward. In family and friends, there's a risk in these two groups of people as well as rewards. Family can be a satisfaction of comfort, safety, and sacrificial support that friends cannot offer. Friends are more informal to your family because they usually are the people who share the same hobbies, interests, or social adaptations. However, these same two groups could be the emotional and psychological imprint to your stress or depression. They are like leeches or mosquitoes that are only near you so that they can cling to you in order to suck the life out of you. That life can be your knowledge, your time, your efforts, your money, or anything that's valuable about you that they can benefit from. Too many of us continue to hang much value on the slogan, "Blood is thicker than water." Yes, blood has different viscosity, but just like blood, water can be contaminated too. It just depends on the person who's doing it. This is why you must filter things you allow in your life and cut off everything that will trouble you. It's a poor investment to keep putting money into romantic gestures when you have bills to pay and the circumstances of life are on the horizon. It's the same thing with celebrating so-called holidays, going to clubs, bars, or demonic concerts that gratifies your current spirit. I am not telling you what to do, I'm only commenting on the facts. Here's a wise quote. "A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who stays closer than a brother. Do not forsake your friend or your father's friend, and do not go to your brother's house on the day of your calamity. Better a neighbor nearby than a brother far away." On the night of April 14, 1912, the vessel called Titanic struck an iceberg on its voyage, and after 2 hours and 40 minutes of remaining afloat, it sank, resulting in 1,517 deaths. 723 people survived. A similar situation happened 3 years later, but the cause was due to a German torpedo that accidentally targeted the Lusitania with 1,959 passengers on board. Unlike the Titanic, this ship didn't remain afloat for long at all in comparison. After a solid 18 minutes, more devastation was produced and the ship sank, leaving only 764 survivors. Let me spread some awareness about the survivors of these two events. The behavior of survival of the fittest is always a basic biological instinct that's within us. It serves us well. When the Titanic hit the iceberg, remember, it didn't sink immediately. There were almost 3 hours that passed before it did. The ship had lifeboats, but not enough to carry away all the passengers. Even if it did, there wouldn't be enough time to lower the lifeboats to uniformly start extricating people to safety. The captain and male crew members began to strategize a preservation plan because they knew everyone would not survive what awaits. In their valiant efforts, the social norm to save the women and children first increased the probability of their survival while decreasing the men's. By the time the ship was under the sea, 48% survived because the bravery of the men. This was different in the event of the Lusitania because the time constraint provided an extremely heightened sense of fending for oneself. There was no time to negotiate or think of an exit plan for women and children, so, as a biological instinct, those who were able-bodied and stronger were able to preserve themselves while those who were slower and less agile were met with the fate of drowning. 39% of the total passengers on board survived, and most of them were men and young adults. What I want to point out is that biologically men want to protect and provide. Men have that instinct to think critically in life-threatening situations. If men are not providing traditional values as being the leader, organizer, the strength, and preserver, then women will naturally abandon that man in the hopes of attaching herself to a man who has those qualities. Why? because it's her biological design. And just like men, our biological design is what keeps our species alive by procreating. Men build homes, go to work, have businesses, and sacrifice themselves for women because they are worth saving. If a woman cannot submit to a man in this generation or learn to be valuable to a man of honor, then just like the ship that doesn't have time, she will drown in misery. God made man to be with the woman, and the irrefutable fact of it all is that a woman was created for a man. That's her goal, or rather that should be her goal in life itself. If any man or woman is not operating in this mode, then both will be a poor short-term and long-term investment. One evening during dinner time, a family of brothers came together to eat and enjoy each other's company. It was pleasant, but it was a little eerie. There were 13 of them. The eldest stood up and said, "I called you all together here with me today privately because I have earnestly wanted to share a wonderful meal with you before I leave your presence. I want you to know that this probably will be my last supper with you all." He finished speaking, then took a glass of wine, gave thanks, and he continued, "Brothers, share this wine amongst yourselves. I will not have a sip because I am fasting from such a drink today." So the brothers were drinking and eating appetizers as they were realizing the seriousness of what their older brother was saying. Then he brought the full course meal to them and told them to eat with gladness and remembrance of him, remembering the fun times, the wise times, and the humbling times. So they all began to eat. As they were eating, the eldest said, "I know that one of you has been jealous of me for quite some time due to my status, and you will betray me when the opportunity comes." Without understanding fully, the other brothers were confused and thought it was a joke. But as the evening went on, they finished eating and prepared for sleep that night in their brother's mansion because he was a very wealthy man. It was customary for the eldest brother to wander off in the night in secret, so while the other brothers slept, he walked to a nearby garden that was less than 300 feet away and sat on the ground. One of the brothers noticed him walking and ran to go wake up everyone else to follow him. The eldest didn't know that the brothers were in the distance watching him in suspense. They came up to him and asked him what was he doing, and he told them that he was praying. Soon after that, the brother who seeked financial gain to betray him was given $300,000 to falsely testify that his brother was a part of a bribery organization so that they can arrest him legally. They had been looking for a way to incriminate him because they had so much hatred and jealousy towards his massive success. So, without violence or erratic emotions, he was approached by the betrayer and went up to him. He said, "Good evening, my wonderful brother," then kissed him on the cheek. That was a signal to the officers to identify who he was since it was dark outside. So, they arrested him and took him in for questioning. They later convicted him of a crime and sentenced him to a wrongful death. If you'd like to read the book yourself, it's called The Last Supper, written by Matthew de Galilee. I recommend it. How deceptive it is for your own relative to sell you out just for money. Your enemy can also be inside your own family, just waiting to fulfill their plot against you. This is why you need to remove yourself and stay away from people who do not add substance to your life, because all of what you have gained will go into the hands of the squanderer. In the end, no matter what you do for money, let it be an honorable occupation and not something you have to sell your soul for. Value your time and don't just share it with anybody and anything. Your interests or motives will rarely be the same as another. You must carefully assess your interactions with people. You don't want to be tricked. A Christian man from Tarsus said this, quote, "Whatever you do, work at it with your whole being, for the Lord and not for men, because you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as your reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Whoever does wrong will be repaid for his wrong, and there is no favoritism." End quote. This is a good concept to follow regardless of your beliefs. What you need to focus on is doing honest work wholeheartedly for your family or loved ones, all the same. Thank you.
The truth is inside of us, and it's wonderful when we have the courage to tell it.